Town beach update. Um, Anything relevant on that after
Yeah,
the town meeting? Not sure where that's at.
John, do you want to take this one?
Sure, why not? Uh,
Oh, dear.
Thanks,
Thank you.
John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I had discussed for the almost 2 months, at least a month and a half before town meeting, one of the reasons for the addition of the expanded hours of the administrative assistant and the Council of Aging building, community center building, is that while the position would be primarily supporting the Council of Aging, there would still be about 20% of its time dedicated to performing the administrative duties for the Recreation Department, and that would allow for a better time management of existing town staff paid for of the Recreation Director to be able to focus her efforts on a more limited scope of activities. Currently, even though the beach and the camp have operated successfully the past 2 years, the burden that people don't see up front is excessive and really is not sustainable for any one employee going forward. And so that was the reason to partially provide an increase of support to the Recreation Department, knowing that there was already some support would have been provided by that 15-hour position. So when we discussed what would, if that position is not filled, and knowing that the workload is, it's not fair to me to ask any employee to have that type of workload. So what we, what I ultimately decided was that we would close the town beach to take out that burden of 7 days a week for those 2 to 3 month period that is very heavy, to allow for focus on the summer recreational camps, and to and also limit the renting out of town facilities to limit off-hour responses. Um, the expanded hours of the position, well, at town meeting, the proposed budget was reduced by $450,000. And the select board has directed me to provide them with two different budget options at their upcoming Monday select board meeting. One is to prioritize keeping things open that I had said would be closed, such as the beach, such as the senior rental of town property, food pantry, and uh, preventing people from just being able to wander around the community center during its open hours. And then the other one would be, if I had to do it all over again, what a different budget scenario would look like, I believe, with the full funding in place. So that's the operating orders that I'm working under, and I'll be presenting a budget proposal on Monday night to the select board, trying to achieve those goals. Two of the select board members were in support of those goals. The other select board member wanted to see cuts come from, or reductions in the budget proposal come from the police, fire, town administrator, DPW, and facilities budgets. So those are my marching orders. I understand there's a lot of angst about this,
Mm,
uh, but it's not that the beach has any revenue implications, that the reduced budget has any revenue implications with the beach opening.
mm,
It's simply, we pay from the general fund for the recreation director. And while we could conceivably add staff to help manage the beach, that would then require beach passes to be increased and rental rates to be, well, the beach passes to be greatly increased in order to basically have almost another full-time person dedicated to the beach for the summer. And I don't think the beach pass increase would really support that. And so as this wasn't meant to be punitive or anything like that. It was simply, this is I had couched this budget as a level service, and that in order to keep providing the level of services that we had, due to the increases in demand for the services for both the recreation and community center council of aging programs, um, that we had to make changes. And simply working somebody all hours of the day, 7 days a week, is not sustainable. And so, unfortunately, removing the beach, while it's not a year-round activity, it is a very heavy activity during uh, prime vacation season, prime. Um, everybody wants to go there during the summer, and it just takes an incredible amount of time to manage. And so that's why that decision was made.
So I have a question, if that's okay. And I think partly why I think it feels punitive is, we had a beach when we had a part-time 20 hours a week rec director, and we had lifeguards and swim lessons and everything. And my question is like, what's changed at the beach that's made it so that what used to be able to be like completely doable with a part-time person now has to be done with two full-time people?
So first off, in terms of it being punitive, it was not meant to be punitive whatsoever.
Sure,
Uh,
I'm just saying like why it feels that
well,
way
well, I
is
understand that, but
yeah.
it's part of the process going into town meeting was, as I said, we've been talking about this at finance committee meetings and select board meetings for 2 months about why this position was needed, um, and what the impacts would be if that position wasn't filled. And one of the things, what I would say is that while it may have happened in the past, it doesn't mean that that was okay, or that it was sustainable, or to continue to ask staff to go forward like nothing is wrong. And it's simply, I heard things that I found to be untenable in the long run in terms of how I would treat any employee, and something had to change. So it's not meant to be punitive. It's simply, people may not have had the full information or were presented with the full information in the past. Or maybe people didn't care. I mean, honestly, that I have a different perspective on some past town administrators. And maybe they just didn't care.
Sure.
I can't, I don't know why. I can just say that, um, seeing what I see, I don't think it's tenable.
With what Victoria said, I was going to say, I mean, probably not as nice or not as eloquent, I guess. But I had the same exact question. Because I think I'm the longest tenured rec committee member here, and I remember it from, long ago, even when I wasn't a rec committee member, just a resident, that this beach existed in sort of the same way forever. And so, one, I don't know the answer, but it sounds like there's a lot more happening in rec, not just the beach. And whereas, maybe it's a shifting of priorities administratively, where it's not just the beach, it's all of the beach programming, or all of the rec programming rather. So, the amount of stuff that's on, Sam's plate is not just the beach, it's all this other stuff too. So, when you talk about status quo and maintaining what we've got going, we've got a lot more going now, and the beach, not just the beach, right? So maybe that's the difference between years past, where it was just the beach and other things that, as a committee and part-time director, we put together. But now there's maybe a lot more on our plate. That was the direction that the rec rec department is in now. Does
Yeah,
that
no, and that was sort of where I was going with like what my question of like what's changed, where what a part-time director used to be able to do. We need two full-time people. And I absolutely acknowledge John's point of, past administrators maybe expected too much of somebody. Like that's I wasn't in those rooms, so I don't know. That's I can totally see that being, a thing. Um I definitely want to just like flesh this out though, because I know people are very upset, and I think it's important we have a full co conversation. And I would like to leave this meeting feeling like this is our, only choice. Obviously, uh, Sam's work-life balance is extremely important to me. And if it's like the only way for us to have a beach means Sam has to work, 80 hours a week, like that's not cool. So like yeah, I want to like flesh it out basically.
Sure. And just pointing at statistics that we provided to the Finance Committee and I did provide to town meeting in my budget report. There's been just since over the past 3 years from, sorry, let me just make sure I got it up here. So in fiscal year 2023, there were 352 registered participation people or people who registered with the recreation department for activities. In fiscal year 25, which ended last summer, there were over 2,100. That's a 600% increase in programming in 3 years. Um,
Yeah, that's amazing.
so I mean it's a huge credit to the recreation committee and to the and to the recreation director that there's so much increased usage of the recreation department programs. It's just that when you have growth like that, and you don't have any additional staff, um, it's just not it's just not reasonable or tenable.
so I guess that's where my question was coming from, I think. Um, the administrative choices as to the direction that the rec committee or not committee, the rec department goes. We had the beach and the other programming was supported by volunteer people, in the committee or, the rec director, I guess, part-time person historically. So now that we have all of this additional programming, um, you know, to to maintain the uh to maintain when you say maintain status quo, it sounds like what you're saying is we've grown, we've decided to do all this other stuff, and now we need the staff to support it. So that decision to grow, maybe beyond our means, not that that's what we did, but if we're not supported by the town in the financial aspect of it, then, we're kind of outside our budget as far as what we can afford in man hours or whatever, like the staffing that can support such growth. And I think that if people are going to be really pissed that the beach is not going to be able to happen because we um can't staff what it takes to run administratively the beach program, then I think that people might question like the other programs that are taking priority then over that because we would compare it to years past where this functioned differently, and we still were able to pull it off with, I don't think, a lot of major changes in how the beach operates. So that I think that seems to fall under like, did we grow too much without the administrative support for staffing, or if there's 2,300 people versus 300, these are, offering up all of this stuff, but if we can't cover the beach, then that's, was that like a conscious decision to just I don't know.
Prioritize.
I feel like I'm talking way too much at this point. But
I'm
like,
just, well, Mark, I'm
and
listening and I like everything you're saying. And I'm just wondering as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you say all this, if we have such a high growth and we had fees and subscriptions applied to this, did our subscription and our fees or beach pass did our increase of those passes not increase with the growth of the need? Like, did we not go up 1 or 2% every year for either our summer programs or our beach passes and things like that to offset the need for all these people that are here? If we have 2,100 people and they're buying or paying for beach use and things like that, or the field use, it sounds like, maybe we didn't increase, to offset all these people coming in.
I thought that those numbers were including like the programming and stuff like that too, like all of the new programming that Sam was also providing.
Well,
Was
Right.
that right? Because I think what the problem is that to do that kind of programming requires a lot of administrative work to set it up, to schedule it, to, all of that stuff. And so you can only do so much. And I think that maybe that's the thing, that there's not enough help for Sam to do the beach and to do all of that with just her
one,
role, even though it's expanded as a full-time
one
Well, I
thing
person.
agree
And
with
that's
you.
I
I
wanted
agree with you 100%. So I'm just wondering, was administrative fees or administrative, you know, salary factored into, when we look at the beach pass, when we look at the field, if we're going to have all these committees or rec games, use the field, do we include, Samantha's time in that? Like all that should be factored in when we go to think about, the field fees that we're going to talk about and the summer passes and everything. It definitely needs to offset if
Yeah,
we
I think
need, if we need paid people to do this.
I think the point is with more programming, there should be more money in the revolving fund, right?
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
one thing I was going to say, and we've talked about this before, just comparing to how rec used to operate, like where we had a treasurer and we had every meeting started with the treasurer's report. So we had visibility into what that revolving fund was and what we, what money was spent on in the last month. And we have no visibility, I feel like, into that now. Because yeah, is this something that we use the revolving fund and hire a beach manager to take some of the pressure off of Sam? It's probably way too late to do that now,
Yeah.
but like, would that have been something feasible or within our discretion to even do?
And
Yeah,
to that, could we have done a sign up sheet for, sorry, John, if I just cut you off, sometimes these are delayed. I'm also wondering, like, is there a sign up sheet for the seniors in our town that's been wanting to work off their taxes? I know I talked with a few at the town meeting the other day, and I know a couple of people are working in the library and some are doing things at the town hall, and they really appreciate this option. And then so, all these snowbirds that come back from Florida into our town, which we have quite a few, is that also something that we're overlooking?
Yeah. And
uh,
I think like a beach manager probably would maybe even, if we can't get this part-time person all year round, maybe a beach manager is a more affordable solution to just, like I said, take some pressure off of Sam with the beach.
Even an internship program, if there was a career path for rec manager or things like that, is there an internship program that we could do during the summer, grab a college student or something starting in their,
Because
um,
I'm assuming the beach responsibilities that are cumbersome are managing the people, building the schedule, um, checking in if like is there I'm curious
Yeah, I
what
mean, I
the
can speak to some of this if that helps.
please.
So when the beach runs generally 9 weeks out of the summer season, basically all summer, once the high school kids get out and pretty much until the week before they go back to school. Um, I'm pretty much on call 7 days a week for the entire 9. So I work summer programs during the day, and then I try to sneak out for opening of the beach, middle of the day when they switch staff, and then the end of the day when it's closing time. But I can only really do that for so many weeks before it's burnout of doing that 7 days a week from, start of the morning until the end of the beach each
Why
day.
why do you have to do that though? Why do you have to be there for
Well, to support the staff to make sure if they have questions, concerns, comments, there needs to be direction on what needs to be done each day with cleanup, with raking sand, with putting things out that need to go out for safety purposes, and just to check
Okay.
in to make sure that they're really, understanding the job and handling any concerns or issues appropriately.
So
We
that
can't.
that totally answers my question on what has changed. When we had a part-time director, I know like when it was Andrea, she like checked in once a day at the beach. Sometimes she'd show up with like some stuff for the snack shack.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that was the right way to do it at all. Like I've, that's not what I'm saying. That answers my question of what has changed and why it's, you are obviously being much more, especially when you mentioned safety, like that's very important. Um, and you want to support your team and all of that. But yeah, that is what's changed. It was never that big of a lift when it was the part-time director. Um, I think back when, and maybe Mark remembers better, back when like we had swim lessons, they might have been there. But even then, like I think there was just a lot of just trust on the team, especially when it was like people that have been here before. And I actually think some of that management, so to speak, was on the lifeguard because were paid a lot more than the attendants, and I think they had more of a management responsibility. So yeah, that answers my question. That is what has changed. There's just a lot more attention on the beach
And
now than there was.
I
But it's
also
not
think
just the
that,
beach, right?
sorry, Smith, I was going to say, Smith, I don't think a lot of people know how much time and dedication you're actually putting in and giving. I think people are going to make the assumptions that your 40 hours, I'm just saying 40 hours, includes all that. I don't think that the
I
town
think
people understand how much time and dedication you're doing to this.
they think the beach runs itself.
Correct.
Yeah,
Myself included, 7 days a week. Like honestly, I knew you were dedicated, but that's like, wow.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, on top of everything else.
Well, I'd say, and on top of that, like right now, I'm already planning fall, and in summer, I'm planning winter. So it's doing all of those things you said of finding a vendor, promoting it, doing registrations, contacting people. Like there's all of that piece that you have to now work into a day where you're watching summer program and running to the beach. So it's a lot for one person for a good 10 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, I totally get that. And that's why I think a beach manager is the solution. Is it a viable solution financially? That I don't know. Again, I have no insight into revolving fund. I know at one point I know the beach was actually um making a was turning a profit. I mean, it was small, but it didn't cost us money in terms of, the staff. So like I said, I don't know with people buying beach tickets and stuff and what our revolving fund is. I don't know if that is viable. I'd be curious to hear from you, Sam or John, if you think it is. But it sounds like that would be really helpful. Then you wouldn't have to go to the beach because we would have a beach manager for the summer.
So the beach is sort of dependent on it pays itself, and then yes, there potentially could be a small profit, but it all depends on the weather and it all depends on sales.
Right.
So even if it's, cloudy, we still open, but we're not taking in any income those days. So if you have a good stretch of bad weather, you're at risk of, in the end, not making money because you're still paying labor for those days. It also depends on how many people actually decide to come and pay. And then the other thing is we do have the support of our police and police details
Right.
to help with closing and managing the on-street parking and sort of after hours use
Mhm.
that was removed from the operating budget this year. So now we're back to it's just on the shoulders of recreation, or we call when we need help, sort of, so to speak. That those factors could determine if the beach were to make a profit or not with the current pricing. So by adding a beach manager, that's going to increase wages a pretty good amount for those 9 or 10 weeks. And prices would need to increase for both residents and non-residents.
Because that's not something we could use the revolving fund for. Is it?
We could, but it's then taking money from programming that, people are paying for here that we can't put back into programming. We're just putting it back into the beach to serve those 9 weeks. Where right now revolving funds are used to go back into a free art program or a sport program or reduced cost on programming to give it right back to those that are paying for it.
Interesting. That's where I feel like I wish we had a little more visibility into that, like a treasurer report type of thing.
With was it Victoria what you were saying about the years past thing? I'm pretty sure there was like a lead lifeguard person who had more managerial
Yeah.
stuff going
They
on.
opened and closed the beach.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
so there was like these like head tier staff members that would help train, would make sure everybody was doing what they're supposed to. And then the Andrea or whomever would pop in and, find out what was going on, if there was any issues, or, would get called if there was any immediate need or anything like that. So that's kind of how it was managed in the past. Um, as far as like having all this other stuff, I know we're sort of in the cycle of doing all of the fall programming in the spring, or setting up fall programming in the spring, the 6 months lead thing, is um I guess the language of like keeping things as status quo and stuff like that, but then also requiring the budget increase. It sounded like what we're calling status quo is like the new um face of the recreation department, which is all of this additional programming on top of the beach. Right. And so like to be able to support that administratively, it's not going to be feasible to have just one person doing that. And I think that maybe is where there's a disconnect where it's like, you know, you're now taking when you have to say, okay, well, we have to cut programming, so we're going to cut the oldest program that we've got going, and then I guess keep all of the newer programs still happening, or is there a inverse of that where the newer programming takes a pause and it's just sort of like just beach centric to be able to keep the beach open through the summer and just kind of abandon um future programming initiatives for the time being, and then maybe even have like a cyclic approach to it where we um can pare that down some to stay within um, what we have at our disposal for administrative hours. I don't know if that was super confusing. Basically, is there a way to like keep the beach open but pare back the new programming and still be able to function?
Right. Like, yeah, why did the beach become like the least prior, like the first on the chopping block, I guess?
I would,
Yep.
I just in general, I mean, to honestly didn't really go into it this deeply, but given the level of services in the year-round demand for rec services, if something's got to give, I would always default to something that's only in place potentially for 10 to 12 weeks of the year versus something that can be going on all year. There are towns that, I mean, there are places that hire beach managers. Right now, just given seeing some things that have been out there, we'd probably have to allocate another 18 grand just for the season. Um, for a seasonal beach manager at the rates that I'm seeing out there. The payroll currently for beaches, according to Samantha, was about 14,000. So basically, your beach passes would all have to double in cost in order to support um, a beach manager or things like that.
What
So
if, can we
for the
promote like
inverse though, like if we were to keep the beach and not put our administrative efforts into the other programming,
I think you would
um,
have to probably shut off your summer camps because it's not just seeing the beaches, it's also overseeing the summer camps at the same time. Basically, summer is an incredibly difficult time period, and you're asking one person to manage the beach, manage your summer camps, and plan for the projects in the future. And so you can
but I
do,
guess that was my point is that the growth has outpaced our staffing, right? And that the summer camps never existed, the fall programming never existed, the winter, spring, whatever. Not to diminish how awesome it is, but if we don't have the staff for it, then that's obviously not fair to Sam. But we also don't have the money to buy staff or to not buy to hire staff, right? So then it becomes a prioritizing thing, which is where things have just happened, right? Like this natural growth, I guess we'll call it, or purposeful growth. Um, this is where it like comes to a head where you have to um the direction of the department has shifted from it's the beach and it's additional stuff that we can do when we can to it's all of these other things and the beach. And then, we'll see about, and I guess we just don't have the staffing to support that much programming. But,
yeah, I guess
when
ultimately it becomes a priority question of what the recreation committee wants to see done. And do they want to be a beach committee or do they want to be a year-round recreation committee? Or do you want to be a year-round recreation committee with a beach? Those are basically the three options you have. The beach, and the programming outside of the beach as well as the beach itself is not sufficient to support a full-time position, period. And so the general fund pays for the director's salary and benefits, as well as some other ancillary costs. Everything else is borne by the recreation revolving fund. But to put it all into the rec revolving fund, which some communities do, they have a very robust program that's almost all and the rec fund funds almost everything, which is ideally where you want to get to. But to do that, you need to have a robust programming and you need a much higher level of fees. So that's, yeah, we don't live in a world with infinite resources, unfortunately. And,
so I
what I've
guess
seen,
I
my
what I've
I
seen in
wonder
most
how we,
towns is that there is a emphasis on year-round recreation activities. And when something has to give, it's usually the seasonal that fall by the wayside. But that again, that's a priority statement of what the recreation committee would like to recommend.
so I guess the recreation committee, I don't think was ever asked if we wanted to do as much programming as we have done. Not that I have any problem with it, but like obviously it's an issue now. But um, that seemed to have been just sort of like an administrative decision. Like, yes, let's just do all of this programming, which is still in hindsight, I loved every moment of it. But you know, we we as a committee, I don't think we're ever like given a question of like how do we want this to look or whatever. And I think a lot of our questions, even like the bylaws, if you look at it, like the way you described our committee, it looks like how it's very beach centric and it's talking about like we're taking care of the Spec Pond beach and keeping that open, and then we do additional programming as we can. And this it kind of feels like we sort of spent a little too much than we had or something like that, where um
Yeah.
we have too much programming. And so like when you talk about seasonal stuff having to give, my um jumping in feelings part thinks like, well, why is it the beach season or why is it the summer season and not the winter season or something? Like these are a collection of seasonal activities that make a year. And I think a lot of people care about the beach, and not that people don't care about the fall or stuff like that. But I think that it feels like as a committee anyway, that I feel like our priority historically has always been the beach. And then, we fill our plate with what we can take on thereafter. But if our plate is completely full with all this other stuff, and then we're just having to look at everything and say, oh, well, let's cut the beach because, that's a summertime thing. That seems a little uh, counter to how we've done it in the past. So, or how we've been focused in the past. But I don't know if it's like, I'm not even sure where we're at as far as like what kind of decisions or plans forward we can make at this point, or what the deal is there.
I'm curious how we did it when we had also because we definitely operated at a loss because to your like you had mentioned the lifeguard manager, like we had lifeguards and swim classes in the morning, and that's partly why we operated at a loss, but it was like a service for the town. We tried to offset the cost as much as we could, and then it did start to turn a profit. I think that was partly because we got rid of the lifeguards, and that was a hard pill to swallow. And then to Mark's point too, just about like it's not like we ever really did have a choice here when in prioritizing or what we wanted to prioritize. Because it does feel rec committee has definitely become much more I feel like reactive. Um, it's Sam tells us what she's doing, and the only reason why like it hasn't been a big problem for me is because Sam's doing an amazing job. And yes, we are offering programming that we never used to be able to. And I feel like we have a, recreation department now, where I felt like we were the recreation department, the rec committee was. And it didn't feel like there was a ton that happened, when we weren't around, meeting. Um, so that's, but it has been hard to get used to in terms of like this new thing. And this is the first time where I feel like it, might have been nice. I don't know if there's like Mark said, if there's is there any decision to be made here? It sounds like it's totally out of our hands, and we kind of just have to deal with it. We can make what suggestions for next year, or what is, you know, what is there any path? I guess this is the question. Is there any path forward that results in the beach being open this summer?
The only path is that if I find a way to provide administrative support, in keeping with what the select board directed me to do. So the proposed budget was reduced by $450,000, and that proposed budget not only included about 225 to $250,000 of expanded or renewed positions. So that 450 doesn't even just cover, I can't just say, okay, fine, we're not doing anything with these positions. There's still another $200,000 of changes that I have to figure out what needs to be removed. And unfortunately, the town municipal services have operated on an extremely lean budget over the years. And part of the issue that I've been trying to accomplish is bring people's attention to how minimally staffed and supported town government is. Schools have generally gotten everything that they've requested, and any requests were taken away from municipal government. And whether that's right or wrong is not a conversation I'm having. I'm simply stating that's the reality. And so when things are proposed, it was trying to catch up for things that weren't spent before. Um, so that's the issue is town meeting made a decision on the recommendation, and now we have to figure it out. As the town administrator, it's my job to manage the fiscal health of the town. And I look for input and recommendations from all committees and boards. However, at the end of the day, I have to make a decision that I think makes sense in terms of what makes sense in terms of available resources, both financial and human. And uh, I would say I came into this 10 months ago, 11 months ago now, and saw what was in place for the recreation programming, and assuming that was what the town wanted and had grown, and that um, I haven't heard anything saying that the rec committee didn't want the town to be offering the programs that they are. Most communities that I've worked in, they want a very robust recreation programming, and
Yeah,
um,
no one is saying that here.
well,
But I think
I
too
would beg to
another.
differ a little bit.
I mean,
But I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying, so I haven't heard anything up till now. And so
Well,
when
I
making
think
the
the
decision for
conversation
the,
wasn't before. The conversation
yeah,
wasn't, hey, if you want this public programming or the beach, which one is it? I don't think there was ever a choice. It was just like more and more and more stuff, and everyone's like, oh yeah, this is great. And there is, I don't
we
know of
didn't know,
anyone
yeah,
who was
we didn't know
aware
what the
of
cost
like,
was.
okay,
yeah,
That's it. We didn't know that it came at the price of the town beach. That's what it is. I didn't know that all this programming, which has been wonderful. I remember I called it out when Sam put together that winter flyer. I thought that was amazing. I absolutely love that. I want my town to have that. But again, like I didn't know that all of this stuff came at the price of the beach. And obviously, I know you guys didn't know that either until that vote happened. Um, so
well, I knew that it was going to be that we had to do something different, that we couldn't go into this season doing what we were doing. Just because we've done it doesn't mean that we can continue to do it or should continue to do it. And so when I was making the presentations to select board and finance committee, we told everyone that, if these positions are not supported, we cannot continue doing it the same way. I suppose that if the rec committee wants to make a recommendation to the select board that the beach is kept open at all costs, and we eliminate summer camps for families, and we eliminate fall programming, then I can keep that under advisement and bring it to the select board. But what my story has been is that the status quo is not sustainable, and so something has to give.
yeah. No, I do get that, and I was honest when I said, Sam's everybody's work-life balance is very important to me. I do not want anybody, working and sacrificing like their personal life. And if it's, she's doing working like too many hours or whatever to make it all work, that's not feasible. That's not sustainable. I completely agree with that. I will say my thing between summer camps versus the beach, our surrounding beaches and surrounding towns typically are resident only. There are some options that are a little further away, where summer camps are everywhere. I can send when my week that I had planned got canceled, I signed them up for Clinton. So I feel like in terms of return, I think just the beach has so much more return than the summer camps do. Personally, everyone is obviously welcome to totally disagree with me on that front. That's just how I feel about it. Um, but again, I go back to what you said, John. I totally agree. Like, there's no part of me where I think that the option is, Sam, you just need to work more. Like, that's definitely not where I'm coming from at all. I just want to save the beach, and it sounds like I can't this year, and maybe we talk about it, what we can do next year to make it happen. Maybe it's more volunteering from us as the rec committee. That's why I joined this, was to volunteer for the town. Maybe that's something where we talk about, and we've certainly done that in the past. I've been to the beach many times picking up trash. So I guess just that's where it sounds like we have no say in this at all right now, but maybe we can talk about what what next year looks like, I guess.
I mean, it sounds like we do have a say, but the say is, do we scrap the, well,
We
it
can't
sounds
scrap
like
summer camps this year. Like that's not fair to everyone that signed up and
I
is
guess. I
excited
mean,
about
it's
it.
also
Parents that
not
are
fair to,
scrambling, yeah, that
Yeah,
have already set up and figured out their summer schedule if they're working or stuff.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly. I
that's
don't think
just
that's an option at
oof.
all.
No.
are they like, the camps are, yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, I'm not
So
sure. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if the beach is not going to open, and does that mean the gates closed? You know, town people are going to go there anyway. So what are they going to do? Just start ticketing all these cars, and or is it just going to be swim at your own risk? And this is what it is. I don't understand how we're going to handle
It's
the people that are going to show up because they're gonna.
yeah.
Well, it's always been, it continues to be swim at your own risk because we don't provide any
Correct.
lifeguards.
Yep. But I know when we talked as a rec committee before that if the parking lot was flown over, oh my God, if the parking lot had overflow, that the police were gonna, let people know you can't park on the side of the road. We are gonna ticket. These can't be here, So what is the backlash on this? Is the gate going to be closed? Are people going to be lining up and down the street? Like, what's the plan here?
So I don't think we've fully had that conversation yet. We were working on the new beach rules and regs that were drafted and handed out at town meeting. The idea is that the gates would be open all the time and that only people with parking stickers would be able to park there. If we're now not staffing the beach, I don't think that we can charge uh, parking passes, and so probably we would have to keep the gates closed and and we were going to be making changes to the signage to make it even more strict that it was a tow zone, clear that it was a tow zone. So um, there's nothing that stops people from taking a bike or walking in there, but I don't think cars are going to be allowed in the area.
Why does it have to be all or nothing, John? Why can't it be people, if you want to park there and not get towed, know that you're swimming at your own risk, right, and all of that, but you can park here as long as you buy a pass. Why can't we still do that and keep that revenue coming in, and so we can earmark it for next year so we can have a better plan? I don't understand why it has to be all or nothing.
Because we're not providing any other services at the
We
beach.
are, though, we're providing parking. We're providing them to
People
park there.
people will go to the bathroom
They're going
The
to go to the
bathroom,
bathroom anyways if
in
they
the
go there.
winter.
They're going to
bathrooms wouldn't be
anyways.
open.
They're going to do it anyways.
I feel
They're
like if
going
the
to do it
bathrooms are,
anyways.
I agree, like kids, sure. Um, Also, I imagine we probably won't be testing for water safety if we aren't staffing it. Now, granted, I feel like that might, could be one small concession. I feel like,
Yeah, we wouldn't be staff, we wouldn't, the bathhouses would remain locked and not in use. They would
Yep.
not be doing trash pickup. We would not be doing water monitoring or anything like that. And if we allow people to park there, there will be trash. There will still be a need to clean up town property because people will do what people do. And so we're not blocking access to the beach because it's a great pond and we can't prevent people from accessing the great pond. But we don't have to allow people to sit there, I mean, to park there and not have a beach pass. And honestly, I don't think I could in good conscience just charge somebody a parking pass to park there. Um,
Well, they're parking at the
other
But
beach. They're not, it's
but
not
we're
a
other
gonna
parking lot,
they're gonna
so.
end up paying so they're gonna end up paying a
yeah,
parking ticket. So what's the price for a parking
they're going to
ticket
end up
that,
getting, no, they're going to end up getting towed
and what's
because
that gonna cost them?
that's going to cost them $200 a
yeah.
tow.
Which is a lot cheap, which is a lot more than a parking pass.
I feel like other towns have like unmanned beaches that you have to pay for parking. I just paid to park at what is it? In Gardner. And there was one in Devon's I paid to park at. And there weren't people There were bathrooms, I will say. So I guess that's what we're paying for is a bathroom. Um, yeah, are you saying, John, there is no middle ground here? Like, are we wasting our breath?
Honestly, we haven't had that full conversation as been working on the budget and trying to work out things. I got to talk more with Samantha and the police chief, but just in terms of knowing how people operate, I
For
don't think
sure.
we can,
We tried a middle ground. Well,
right.
we
And
tried
and
it
and,
in
and
2020.
part of the reason why we do the parking passes is for out of town residents who come in. And that's why we have staff there to make sure that there are people with parking passes. And so if we require parking passes, part of the issue is we can't pay police officers to go up there and check if cars are parked there if they have a parking pass. So
Yeah, that's
now we're gonna some people will buy them, some people won't, and people will get mad that, I'm paying for the parking pass to park here, but so and so just showed up and they're not paying a parking pass. And so I'm going to call Samantha and complain, and Samantha's going to say either the gates are open. Well, Samantha's going to come to me and I'm going to say either the gates are open or they're not, and we can't enforce it. And so it's either a free for all that we then have to be reactive and clean up
yeah.
messes and clean up issues, or we be proactive and shut it down.
Yeah,
It's
But
a,
I don't
again, I feel like I know we're going round robin with this, and I'm trying to be sympathetic to that, but I think it's naive of us to think that we're not going to have the police go up there anyways when people who live on that road call the town and say, hey, people are parked up all on downside of this road. I can't get up and down. That's going to be an issue.
for sure.
So
correct.
I
But
think this all or nothing.
once we start towing cars and people know that we're towing,
I think that's
that will have a
horrible.
different
Well,
impact.
I think that's
That
horrible
would be
for
the
the
same
town
thing when we
people
start
that can't
towing.
go swimming at 90 degrees. And I just think that's horrible.
I
They,
mean, people are going
they,
to get the same message when you start towing cars when people don't have a pass, right?
right, but that it's a matter of
But that's a choice.
yeah, and it's just
They have a choice to buy a pass.
unfortunately when we're dealing with the public, we have to um, when dealing with the public, we have to assume the worst but hope for the best. And so and we have to be fair. And I don't think we can charge parking and leave the gates open because it's not going to be fair to people who choose to take advantage of the town's lack of enforcement. So if we're not going to enforce it, it's either free for all or we don't open it. And I'm not, because we're closing it because of issues with staffing, allowing it to be a free for all and constantly being reactive to complaints that we get up there is not going to be sustainable.
The enforcement piece, how is that not possible? You're saying you have to pay police to go and go up there? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is that it's one thing for the police to go up there if they get a call about parking on the road. They have to respond one way or the other. They are under no obligation to drive into the beach parking lot and check to see if everybody has a parking pass. And that's
Right.
why we have parking attendants. If we don't have parking attendants, then we have no means of enforcing that because police staffing is limited and they don't have the time during the day necessarily to do that. And again, it's not within their tasks, their job duties to check on parking passes. And so that's where there's basically no enforcement. If they're driving by and they see a car parked in a tow zone, that's a different story. If they could
So, but
complain,
I mean that it is Lancaster. I mean these policemen are driving up that road, patrolling the area here and there, and it could just be it doesn't have to be like a daily enforcement, but just
well,
like you roll the dice if you
patrolling is you drive into the parking lot, you make sure there's nothing untoward happening, and you drive back out. Driving into the parking lot and checking for parking passes is a different task that takes a lot more time. They're two totally different things.
I guess. I mean, it sounds like if we make it a hard rule, like, you have to have your pass visible or you're gonna get towed. Um,
But again, that requires the police to go and see their pass. And I'm not asking a police officer to do that.
What? Okay. But it's okay to ask them to have the car towed. So I think once it gets put on the side of the road, or if they're parking in the parking lot and they see if you don't have a pass and you get towed, then they're going to get the message, which is the same thing you said about if they park on the side of the road, they get towed, they're going to get the message.
right.
But it,
And
it
you're
requires a lot more. You drive down the road, you see a car on the side of the road, you, you ticket and tow it. Going in and trying to find the car that doesn't have a parking pass of other cars that has a parking pass is not effective and is not efficient and will not be enforced, which will lead to constant complaints from people that, oh, this family pulled up and they don't have a parking pass. Why can they do that? Why did I pay a parking pass? What am I paying for a parking pass? That's the question.
Honestly, I think what if it would take like 1 week? It wouldn't be the whole time. 1 week you go in there, you ticket everybody that doesn't have a pass. They'll get the idea like, oh,
Well, who's going to do that though?
that's
It's, we're we don't have the staff to do that.
well, what I was saying about the police.
I'm
It
not
wouldn't
asking.
have to be
Yeah,
8 weeks of, yeah, I get that. So it's
the
where there's
police
no
are not
point in talking about
police are
it.
not a viable
Yeah.
option for that type of job duty.
so
I it's
in the plan move previously, towing people and giving people citations or whatever, that was who did that fall to?
Right, the out of after hours, if people were parked there and we're gonna get towed, who's gonna do that?
There was a line item for police to handle details or overtime after after hours, after shift hours.
But that wouldn't be a scheduled time. I mean, it would just be like patrolling, and if there's cars there, they get ticketed. That's just part of their job. It
If they're
wouldn't be
driving down the road, I see Chief Moody is on. I don't know if he has anything he wants to hop in. And I'm assuming Samantha may
sure.
have clue you in on some things.
Unfortunately, I just hopped in, so I'm not aware of where the discussion is, but I am happy to, if someone wants to get me up to speed, either offline, I'll take a phone call, or if you want to talk openly about it, I'm happy to listen and then answer any questions.
Yeah, essentially the question, Chief, is could we open up the gates for the summer if the beach is not staffed and sell parking passes, and who would be the enforcement mechanism? And what I've been saying is that I would not ask any police officer to take time to go up there and try to check parking passes. It's one thing to go through and drive around and do a status check, if you will. It's another thing to try to stop and examine if people have parking passes or not.
Yeah, that is correct. The police department, whether it's the police officer or a sergeant, has a specific job description that would not be included in their job description. So I would not be able to mandate them to do that. They would, in the course of their regular duties, enter into the parking lot, do public safety checks, but they would not be doing anything as far as recreational enforcement.
So for a
It would be
towing,
parking enforcement. Like if I park on somewhere, if I park in front of a fire hydrant, like I can
That's
get like a ticket for that. And if
uh,
we make it so there's no parking there without a pass, is that is
that
that
is
different?
Yes, absolutely. It would be a
Okay.
different chapter and section. One would be a town bylaw. Again,
Okay.
the parking that we enforce is public safety. It's governed by, and I don't have the chapter and section on hand, but it's governed by that, and it's specific to intersection, crosswalk, within the 10 feet of a fire hydrant, that sort of stuff. So they wouldn't be issuing tickets in a public place where the recreation committee deems it parking pass only.
Yeah, or like permit permit parking
Yeah.
only. Okay.
Yeah,
So
now,
that's,
now
I'm glad
don't take
I'm glad you're here.
yeah, don't take this as we are not willing to go in and help monitor for safety. I just want to be
Right.
clear on what the expectations would be and what a police officer's role would be, in that situation.
Yeah, basically how I feel right now is we're kind of just like grasping at straws to try to figure out how to keep our beach open. Um, I keep circling back to like it doesn't sound like it's gonna happen for us, but we're trying to flesh out like every possibility, because I know it's important to us as the rec committee, um, also as like representatives of the town. We know that it's very important to them, so we're just trying to see if there's some way we can save it this summer, and it's not looking good. Outcome does not look good.
Okay. Yeah, again, I'm happy to discuss it further with anyone and look at job descriptions. One of the concerns that we have for public safety is just the amount of trash in the illicit partying, that type of
Hmm.
stuff. So alcohol on the beach, fires on the beach, that we would be very proactive in stopping, and using the state laws that are available to us to enforce. I'm just not sure what we would be able to do as far as permits during the day, after hours, obviously trespassing after dark,
Right.
that sort of stuff. So,
if,
All right.
if we leave the gates open, it will be a free-for-all and will be an even
Oh,
larger administrative
for
burden than it
sure.
is now.
Yeah, no, I agree that like that's not a viable option. It would be unsafe. I think the like especially with nobody like monitoring water safety, I do not like the idea of that at all. Um and yeah, it would be trashed. Um yeah, I agree that just a simple free for all is definitely not a viable it's not safe and it's gross and yeah, just not a viable solution.
Throw it in the garbage can in the garage.
Again, though, I think where Sherry was coming from and where I was, we're trying to figure out is just if there was a feasible middle ground. Um, because we had something like that in 2020 during COVID. It did rely on volunteers though, doing trash removal. And I remember it being kind of burdensome. But again, I don't like the idea of like unmonitored water and
Yeah,
it
and
because
and and relying on volunteers is great in theory. In actual practice, uh, no people, they don't want to show up. They don't have to show up. Volunteers, relying on volunteers to man shifts or to do certain
right.
tasks is, there's still potential liability that gets on the town. And,
Yeah.
I can't yell at a volunteer like I can yell at Samantha and Chief Moody. Um,
Well, I
I don't
disagree,
know
that
how
was
that
that was
would
but
meant to
go.
be a joke.
I don't
That was
think.
meant to be a
Yeah,
joke.
no, I know. I get it. I get what you're saying. There's only so much. Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And I mean, yeah, the volunteer thing was fine to like get us by that 1 year of what it was, but I do agree. That would also be added stress, like to Smith. If no one shows up, do I have to go pick up this trash? Um, yeah, I get that. Um,
God forbid a volunteer gets stuck by a needle.
yep,
There's no workers' compensation for coverage for them. At least with
yep.
a paid staff, there is. Not that
Uh,
I'm expecting needles to be there, but that's a worst case
right.
scenario
I was
that
like, how did you get there?
I,
Oh,
Oh,
I've
Holy God.
I have
Come
to
on,
live in
that's a
John.
worst case
thing.
scenarios,
yeah,
No,
unfortunately.
there's
that is a
Wow.
thing, unfortunately.
yeah, there's no
Especially
shortage of
especially if it's
sketchiness out
closed.
there.
Yeah, especially if it's closed, that's where people are going to go to do that stuff, and that's why, you know, Chief Moody
Well,
mentioned, doing those safety checks.
well, that's kind of my point. It's like again, sorry, we're doing this round robin. So if nobody's monitoring it, this is exactly how it could end up. I mean, it's going to have to be monitored one way or the other, because if we're not doing it at all, people are still going to show up. And this is what I'm saying. I feel like, this all or nothing, um, is it could be disastrous because, you know, there could be not monitoring and people are sitting there and shooting up or whatever, and everything is left there now. Where if somehow we found somewhere, and I totally appreciate the police's time, I always have, so I'm not trying to strain on them, but I feel like not monitoring it or not paying attention to it just because, oh, well, we can't afford it, so we're not doing it, that's going to cause a whole nother set of problems.
So what will happen with the gates closed and revised parking on the street is that people will either have to walk or bike or get dropped off and go use the beach. We're going to have our standard rules and regulations up about what you can and can't do on a beach. It is a great pond and we have access to a great pond. And so under state law, we cannot prohibit entirely people from going there. However, if they don't have readily available motor vehicle transport, they're not going to be able to, meaning they're not going to be able to park in the parking lot. They're not going to be able to park on the street. And so in general, that's going to limit the number of people using it. And then what will have to happen is that we will be reliant on the abutters. If things get out of control, not to their liking, they will call. And then the police will respond to that call. So it's going to be entirely reactive. There's going to be nothing proactive about the situation.
I don't want to cut this off, but I have a 3 o'clock call that I have to get on.
Yeah.
I
I
think.
had one quick thing, real quick, I promise.
All right, real quick.
So for the like summer camp stuff, if we were to keep that because we don't want the kids to be abandoned and nothing else, is it possible to still keep the beach open in a limited administrative way instead of having Sam down there and running the show perfectly, that we kind of like skeleton crew it? Is that at all a possibility or something to think about in like for the next week's meeting or something like that? Like if we could just scrape by and just do the summer camp bare bones and then do the bare bones administrative coverage for the beach and do it as we planned and maybe even raise the rates to like cover what we need to, um slightly, but something like that. That was my full circle question, but it doesn't
Yeah,
need to answer. I just
unfortunately, I don't see any bare bones. You kind of already are at bare bones, and so there's no other. There really isn't any other way to do it because we're hiring a bunch of high school kids to sit out there by themselves. You're hiring camp counselors. You're having programs for the camps, and somebody needs to be watching that. And so you can't be in two places at once. Um, unfortunately, I fully understand what you're asking. I just don't see it as a reality.
yeah, I guess that was my thought, is like, in the past we had let them be
Yeah,
by themselves,
yeah.
and is
Which
that like not a possibility?
I know that's not a possibility that I would want while I'm here.
Okay,
All right.
I'm good.
All right. So
That's
really the last four bullet points are, we're gonna we'll set up a follow-up meeting for next week. We were originally gonna focus that meeting on just the OSRP, I believe, but we'll add these to that. So we'll set something up. I'll follow up with everybody later today and try and set something up for next week.
The only, yeah, no, that's fine. I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah.
Everybody has to go. So thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you everyone for joining.
All right.
Appreciate your time.
Yep. We need to go through
Thank you.
the formal routine to adjourn this.
Unfortunately,
Motion to
you do.
adjourn.
Yes.
All right. Anyone second it?
Second.
All right. Victoria,
I.
Mark,
Aye.
Sherry,
Aye.
and myself, I. All right. I'll follow up and we'll set something up, continued discussion for next week.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Yeah,
it, everybody.
and John and Chief Moody, thanks for your time.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. All right.
The
bye.
recording has stopped.